The security cameras at Sterling Heights Country Club captured everything that happened on that scorching Tuesday afternoon in August. What they recorded would expose a truth so shocking that it would tear apart one of Connecticut's wealthiest families and reveal the extraordinary courage of a 17-year-old girl who wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Blackwood family estate stretched across 47 acres of pristine Connecticut countryside, its manicured gardens and marble fountains, a testament to 3 generations of pharmaceutical fortune. At the heart of this empire sat Harrison Blackwood III, a man whose net worth exceeded most small nations' GDP and whose pharmaceutical company, Meridian Therapeutics, dominated the diabetes medication market across North America. But on that sweltering August morning, Harrison's mind wasn't on quarterly reports or board meetings. His 22-year-old son, Camden, hadn't emerged from his bedroom by noon, and the family's longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, was growing concerned. Camden had been managing type 1 diabetes since he was 14, a cruel irony considering his father's company manufactured some of the world's most advanced insulin products. Camden had always been rebellious about his condition. Despite having access to the most sophisticated continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps money could buy, he frequently skipped doses, ignored dietary restrictions, and dismissed his endocrinologist's warnings. His reasoning was simple: he was young, wealthy, and invincible. The diabetes was just an inconvenience that interfered with his lifestyle of late-night parties, exotic vacations, and extreme sports. That Tuesday started like any other for Camden. He'd returned home at 4 in the morning from a yacht party in Newport, having consumed far too much alcohol and completely forgotten his evening insulin routine. His blood sugar had been climbing steadily for hours, but in his exhausted state, he'd simply collapsed into bed without checking his glucose levels. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in the rundown Riverside neighborhood, 17-year-old Maya Rodriguez was preparing for what she hoped would be her last day of summer employment. Maya had been working multiple jobs since she was 15, helping her single mother cover rent on their cramped apartment above the corner laundromat. Her mother, Elena, worked double shifts at the local hospital as a nursing assistant, but even with both their incomes, they barely scraped by. Maya's current job was housekeeping at Sterling Heights Country Club, an exclusive establishment where membership fees exceeded her family's annual income. She'd taken the position through a community outreach program, and while the work was demanding, it paid better than her previous jobs at the grocery store and pizza delivery service. More importantly, it was helping her save money for nursing school, a dream that seemed increasingly attainable with each paycheck. The irony wasn't lost on Maya that she spent her days cleaning the recreational facilities of people who lived in a completely different world. She'd grown up watching her younger brother Diego struggle with type 1 diabetes, learning to calculate carbohydrate ratios and recognize the subtle signs of blood sugar fluctuations when their mother was working late shifts. Diego's condition had made Maya incredibly knowledgeable about diabetes management, though their family could barely afford his basic insulin supplies, let alone the advanced technology that Camden Blackwood took for granted. At Sterling Heights, Maya had quickly earned a reputation for thoroughness and reliability. She arrived early, stayed late, and never complained about the additional tasks that other staff members tried to avoid. The club's wealthy members barely acknowledged her presence, which suited Maya perfectly. She wasn't there to socialize. She was there to work and save money for her future. That Tuesday morning, Maya was assigned to clean the pool house and surrounding recreational areas. The temperature was already approaching 90 degrees by 10 a.m., and the humidity made the air feel thick and oppressive. Most of the club's members had retreated to the air-conditioned interior spaces, leaving the outdoor areas relatively empty. Camden had decided to drive to the club around 11:30, figuring he'd spend the day by the pool to recover from his hangover. He felt somewhat off, more tired than usual, with a persistent headache and unusual thirst, but attributed these symptoms to his late night. His insulin pump had been beeping intermittently for hours, but he'd grown so accustomed to ignoring its alerts that he barely noticed. The drive to Sterling Heights should have been his first warning. Camden found himself having difficulty concentrating, and his vision seemed slightly blurred, but he was determined to meet his friends at the club, convinced that some time in the sun and a few drinks would help him feel better. He parked his Tesla in the premium member lot and made his way toward the pool area, moving more slowly than usual. Maya was organizing pool equipment in the storage shed when she first noticed Camden. Even from a distance, something about his gait caught her attention. Having spent years watching her brother navigate diabetes-related complications, she'd developed an almost intuitive ability to recognize when someone's blood sugar was dangerously off balance. Camden's movements seemed sluggish and uncoordinated, and she could see him pausing frequently, as if trying to regain his bearings. Camden found an empty lounge chair near the deep end of the pool and collapsed onto it with visible relief. He was sweating profusely despite being in the shade, and his breathing seemed labored. Several other club members were scattered around the pool area, but they were absorbed in their phones, conversations, and magazines, paying no attention to Camden's obvious distress. Maya continued her work but kept glancing in Camden's direction. Her instincts, honed by years of monitoring her brother's condition, were telling her that something was seriously wrong. Camden kept reaching for his water bottle, but seemed unable to satisfy his thirst. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor, and she noticed him fumbling with what appeared to be an insulin pump attached to his belt. The situation escalated rapidly. Within 20 minutes of Camden's arrival, Maya watched him attempt to stand, but immediately sink back into the chair, as if his legs wouldn't support him. He was now breathing in short, rapid pants, and even from 30 feet away she could see that he was becoming increasingly disoriented. Maya faced a dilemma that would define the rest of her life. She was just a 17-year-old cleaning girl in a place where she was barely tolerated. Camden Blackwood was the son of one of the most powerful families in the state. Approaching him could cost her the job she desperately needed, especially if she was wrong about what she was observing. But as Camden suddenly doubled over, clutching his stomach, Maya knew she couldn't remain a silent observer. Her brother had experienced similar episodes, and she recognized the signs of diabetic ketoacidosis, a potentially fatal complication that required immediate intervention. The other club members remained oblivious, lost in their privileged bubble of indifference. Camden's condition was deteriorating by the minute. His breathing had become deeper and more rapid, and Maya could see him struggling to maintain consciousness. She abandoned her cleaning supplies and began walking toward him, her heart pounding as she prepared to insert herself into a situation that could change everything. What happened next would expose the stark contrast between compassion and indifference, between knowledge born of necessity and ignorance sheltered by wealth. Maya Rodriguez was about to discover that sometimes the most important moments in life come not from grand gestures, but from simply choosing to act when others choose to look away. Maya's hands trembled as she approached Camden's lounge chair. Up close, the severity of his condition became unmistakable. His lips had a bluish tint, and she could smell the distinct fruity odor of ketones on his breath, a dangerous sign she'd learned to recognize during Diego's worst episodes. Camden's eyes were half closed, and he seemed to be mumbling incoherently. "Excuse me," Maya said softly, kneeling beside the chair. "Are you okay?" Camden's head lolled toward her, his eyes struggling to focus. "Fine, just tired," he slurred, his words barely comprehensible. His insulin pump was beeping insistently, displaying error messages that he was too disoriented to read. Maya glanced around the pool area. A group of middle-aged women sat chatting at a corner table, completely absorbed in their gossip. Two men in expensive polo shirts were engaged in an animated business discussion near the bar. A handful of teenagers lounged on the opposite side of the pool, music blasting from their portable speakers. None of them had noticed Camden's distress, or if they had, they simply didn't care. "When did you last check your blood sugar?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice calm despite her rising panic. Camden looked at her with confusion, as if her words were in a foreign language. Who are you?" he managed to whisper. Maya realized she had seconds to act. Camden's breathing was becoming increasingly labored, and she could see his body beginning to shut down. She'd witnessed this progression with Diego 3 years ago when he'd been hospitalized for severe ketoacidosis. The memory of that terrifying night flooded back, the frantic ambulance ride, the ICU monitors, the doctors explaining how close they'd come to losing him. "I'm Maya." "I work here," she said, reaching for Camden's insulin pump. "I need to see what your blood sugar is." The device showed a reading of 487 milligrams per deciliter, a dangerously high level that confirmed her worst fears. Camden was in full diabetic ketoacidosis, and without immediate intervention, he could slip into a coma or worse. Maya pulled out her phone and dialed 911, But as she waited for the connection, she realized that emergency responders might take 15 to 20 minutes to arrive at the exclusive club's remote location. Camden didn't have that much time. Maya Rodriguez speaking. I need an ambulance at Sterling Heights Country Club immediately. I have a 20-something male in diabetic ketoacidosis. He's semi-conscious, blood sugar is 487, and showing signs of severe dehydration. The dispatcher's professional tone came through clearly. Units are being dispatched. Can you stay on the line and continue monitoring the patient? Yes, but I need to try to stabilize him first, Maya replied, ending the call despite the dispatcher's protests. She knew from Diego's endocrinologist that the immediate priority was getting Camden's blood sugar down and preventing further ketone production. His insulin pump had malfunctioned. The error messages indicated a blocked catheter, meaning he hadn't received proper insulin dosing for hours. Maya had never administered emergency insulin to anyone other than her brother, but she understood the principles. Camden needed fast-acting insulin, and he needed it now. She searched his belongings and found his emergency kit, containing backup insulin pens and glucose testing supplies. "Sir, I'm going to give you some insulin," she told Camden, though she wasn't sure he could understand her. "Your pump isn't working." As Maya prepared the insulin pen, she became aware of voices approaching. 2 club security guards were walking in her direction, their expressions stern and disapproving. "Miss, you need to step away from Mr. Blackwood," the older guard commanded. "You're not authorized to provide medical assistance to club members." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maya looked up, incredulous. He's dying. His blood sugar is almost 500, and he's in ketoacidosis. The ambulance is coming, but he needs insulin right now. "That's not your concern," the second guard replied coldly. Club policy clearly states that staff members are not permitted to. "Your club policy is going to kill him," Maya interrupted, her voice rising. "Look at him. He can barely breathe." The guards exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable, but unwilling to bend the rules. The older one spoke into his radio, calling for the club's on-duty nurse, but Maya knew that every minute of delay could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, the commotion had finally attracted attention from the other pool-goers. The group of women had stopped their conversation and were staring with a mixture of curiosity and distaste. One of them, a perfectly coiffed blonde in her 50s, approached with obvious annoyance. "What exactly is going on here?" she demanded, her tone suggesting that Maya's very presence was offensive. "Why is the cleaning girl bothering Camden?" "Ma'am, your friend is having a medical emergency," Maya explained, still holding the insulin pen. "He has diabetes, and his blood sugar is dangerously high. He needs immediate treatment." The woman, Mrs. Whitmore, according to her monogrammed tennis outfit, looked skeptical. "Camden's fine. He's probably just had too much to drink again. You need to leave him alone and get back to work." Maya stared at Mrs. Whitmore in disbelief. "He's not drunk. He has diabetic ketoacidosis. If he doesn't get insulin in the next few minutes, he could go into a coma." "I don't think a 17-year-old cleaning girl is qualified to make medical diagnoses," Mrs. Whitmore replied icily. "Security, please escort her away from here." Camden chose that moment to convulse slightly, his breathing becoming even more shallow and rapid. The fruity smell of ketones grew stronger, and Maya could see that his skin was becoming increasingly pale and clammy. "He's getting worse," Maya said desperately, turning back to the guards. "Please, just let me give him this insulin. I know what I'm doing. My brother has the same condition." The older guard hesitated, clearly torn between club protocol and the increasingly obvious severity of Camden's condition. "The nurse should be here any minute," he said uncertainly. Maya looked around frantically. The club nurse was nowhere to be seen. The ambulance hadn't arrived, and Camden was deteriorating rapidly. She made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Ignoring the guards' protests and Mrs. Whitmore's outraged gasps, Maya quickly administered the insulin injection into Camden's thigh. She'd calculated the dosage based on his approximate weight and the severity of his symptoms, drawing on everything she'd learned from managing Diego's condition. "How dare you!" Mrs. Whitmore shrieked. "You just assaulted a club member! Guards, arrest her immediately!" But Maya wasn't finished. She knew that insulin alone wouldn't be enough. Camden was severely dehydrated, and his electrolyte balance was dangerously disturbed. She grabbed a bottle of electrolyte solution from the pool bar and began trying to get small sips into Camden's mouth, supporting his head to prevent choking. The scene was surreal, a teenage girl in a housekeeping uniform performing emergency medical care while surrounded by wealthy club members who seemed more concerned about protocol violations than a young man's life. Some had pulled out their phones to record the incident, though whether to document Maya's inappropriate behavior or Camden's medical crisis remained unclear. Camden's breathing began to slow slightly, still labored but less frantic than before. His eyes fluttered open briefly, and he seemed to gain a moment of clarity. "What? What happened?" he whispered, his voice hoarse but more coherent than before. "You're having a diabetic emergency," Maya explained gently. "I gave you some insulin, and the ambulance is coming. Try to stay awake if you can." Camden's gaze focused on Maya's face, and she could see confusion mixed with gratitude in his eyes. You helped me?" Before Maya could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air. The ambulance had finally arrived, but the real crisis was just beginning. As paramedics rushed toward them with their equipment, Maya realized that saving Camden's life might have cost her everything else. The paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, immediately checking Camden's vital signs and blood glucose levels. Lead paramedic Jennifer Walsh quickly assessed the situation, noting the insulin pen in Maya's hand and the obvious improvement in Camden's breathing. "Good call on the insulin," Walsh told Maya quietly. "His levels are dropping, and his ketone production is slowing. You probably saved his life." But Maya's relief was short-lived. Club manager Richard Sterling had arrived on the scene, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Sterling had built his career on maintaining Sterling Heights' reputation as Connecticut's most exclusive establishment, where wealthy members expected their privacy and comfort to be absolute priorities. "This is completely unacceptable," Sterling announced to anyone within earshot. "An employee has overstepped her boundaries and potentially created liability issues for the club. Miss Rodriguez will be terminated immediately." Camden was being loaded onto a stretcher, but he was conscious enough to hear Sterling's pronouncement. "Wait," he called out weakly. She helped me. Don't fire her." Sterling's expression remained unmoved. "Mr. Blackwood, I understand you're grateful, but club policies exist for important reasons. Staff members cannot provide medical treatment to members. We have procedures and protocols that must be followed." Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, clearly enjoying the drama. That girl administered an injection without any medical training or authorization. She could have killed him. What if she calculated the dosage wrong? What if he was allergic to something? The club could face massive lawsuits. Maya watched in stunned silence as her act of compassion was being reframed as reckless endangerment. The other club members nodded in agreement with Mrs. Whitmore's assessment, their faces showing a mixture of disapproval and vindication that the social order was being restored. "I've been managing my brother's diabetes for 3 years," Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I know exactly what I was doing. His blood sugar was 487. He would have gone into a coma without intervention." "That's not the point," Sterling replied coldly. "You're not a licensed medical professional. You had no right to make that decision, regardless of the outcome." As the ambulance prepared to leave, Camden made eye contact with Maya one more time. "Thank you," he mouthed silently, before the paramedics closed the doors and drove away. Maya gathered her cleaning supplies in a daze, knowing that her employment at Sterling Heights was over. More concerning was the possibility that Sterling might file charges against her or create legal problems that could affect her future nursing school applications. The irony was devastating. Her medical knowledge and quick thinking had saved someone's life, but now it might destroy her own prospects of becoming a healthcare professional. The drive home to Riverside felt like the longest 20 minutes of Maya's life. She dreaded telling her mother what had happened, especially since they desperately needed her income from the club. Elena Rodriguez worked exhausting double shifts at the hospital, and Maya's earnings had been crucial for covering Diego's medical expenses and saving for nursing school. When Maya walked into their small apartment, Elena immediately sensed something was wrong. "Mija, what happened?" Maya told her mother everything, from recognizing Camden's symptoms to administering the insulin to being fired by club management. Elena listened without interruption, her expression shifting from concern to pride to worry. You did the right thing, Elena said firmly. No job is worth letting someone die when you have the knowledge to help them. But what are we going to do about money? Maya asked. And what if they cause problems for my nursing school applications? Elena hugged her daughter tightly. We'll figure it out. We always do. Your character is more important than any job. That evening, Diego returned home from his summer computer programming camp. When he heard Maya's story, his reaction was immediate and emotional. You saved someone's life using everything you learned taking care of me, he said, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry that helping me might have cost you your future. Don't you dare apologize, Maya replied. Everything I learned about diabetes management, I learned because I love you and wanted to keep you safe. Using that knowledge to help someone else was an honor, not a burden. Meanwhile, across town at Connecticut General Hospital, Camden was recovering in the intensive care unit. His blood sugar had stabilized, and his ketone levels were returning to normal ranges. Harrison Blackwood III sat beside his son's bed, listening as Camden recounted the events at the club. She knew exactly what to do, Dad, Camden said. While everyone else just stood around, she recognized the symptoms immediately and acted without hesitation. The paramedic said I could have died without that insulin. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. As the owner of a pharmaceutical company that specialized in diabetes medications, he understood better than most how serious Camden's condition had become. He also understood the courage it had taken for a 17-year-old girl to intervene when adults had chosen to look away. Tell me about this girl, Harrison said. Camden described Maya's calm professionalism, her obvious medical knowledge, and her willingness to risk her job to save his life. She said she learned everything from managing her brother's diabetes. Dad, she was more qualified to help me than anyone else at that club, but they fired her because she's just a cleaning girl. Harrison's jaw tightened. His son's near-death experience was forcing him to confront some uncomfortable truths about the world they inhabited. A world where wealth and status mattered more than knowledge and compassion. The next morning, Harrison made several phone calls. First, he spoke with club manager Sterling, learning the details of Maya's termination and the club's justification for their actions. Then he contacted his legal team to understand the liability issues surrounding Maya's intervention. Finally, he hired a private investigator to learn more about Maya Rodriguez and her family. The investigator's report painted a picture that both impressed and humbled Harrison. Maya maintained a 4.0 GPA while working multiple jobs to support her family and save for nursing school. Her younger brother Diego was an honors student despite managing type 1 diabetes with limited resources. Their mother, Elena, was a respected nursing assistant who had worked at the same hospital for 8 years without a single disciplinary action. Most significantly, the investigator discovered that Maya had been accepted to 3 different nursing programs, but couldn't afford tuition at any of them. Her savings from various jobs had been steadily depleted by Diego's medical expenses, which weren't fully covered by their basic insurance plan. Harrison realized that Maya Rodriguez represented everything his pharmaceutical company claimed to value in its mission statements: medical knowledge, compassion for patients, and dedication to helping others manage chronic conditions. Yet here she was, being punished for demonstrating exactly those qualities. 3 days after the incident, Maya received an unexpected phone call. Harrison Blackwood's assistant invited her to meet with Mr. Blackwood at his corporate headquarters. Maya was terrified, assuming she was about to face legal action or demands for financial compensation. Elena insisted on accompanying her daughter to the meeting. They took 2 buses and walked half a mile to reach the gleaming Meridian Therapeutics building, feeling completely out of place in the marble and glass lobby filled with executives in expensive suits. Harrison's office occupied an entire floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Connecticut River. But despite the intimidating setting, Harrison's manner was surprisingly warm and humble. "Miss Rodriguez, I owe you an enormous debt of gratitude," he began. "You saved my son's life, and you did so with remarkable skill and courage." Maya remained silent, unsure where the conversation was heading. "I've learned about your background, your family's situation, and your academic achievements," Harrison continued. "I've also learned that you were punished for demonstrating exactly the kind of medical knowledge and quick thinking that every healthcare professional should possess." He paused, studying Maya's face. "I'd like to make you an offer. Meridian Therapeutics has an educational scholarship program for students pursuing healthcare careers. I'd like to provide you with a full scholarship to the nursing program of your choice, plus living expenses and a guaranteed internship position with our clinical research team." Maya stared at him in shock. I don't understand." "Furthermore," Harrison continued, "I'd like to offer your mother a position as a diabetes patient coordinator at our clinical trials facility. The salary would be significantly higher than her current job, with full medical benefits for your entire family." Elena gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. "And for Diego," Harrison added, "we'd like to provide him with our most advanced continuous glucose monitoring system and insulin pump technology, at no cost, for as long as he needs diabetes management." Maya felt tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this?" Harrison's expression grew serious. "Because you demonstrated something that my son's wealth and privilege couldn't provide. The knowledge and courage to act when someone needed help. You risked everything to save a stranger's life, while people with far more resources chose to protect themselves instead." He walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "I've spent my career building a company that develops diabetes medications, but I've been insulated from the real experiences of families living with this condition. Your family has shown me what it means to truly understand diabetes, not as a market opportunity, but as a daily challenge that requires knowledge, vigilance, and mutual support." Maya found her voice. "What about Sterling Heights? They said I violated policies and created liability issues." Harrison smiled grimly. "Mr. Sterling and I had a very interesting conversation yesterday. It seems the club has decided to revise their emergency response protocols. They've also reinstated your employment with a formal apology, though I suspect you won't be needing that job anymore." As for Mrs. Whitmore and the other club members who had criticized Maya's actions, Harrison had made it clear that their attitudes were no longer welcome at Sterling Heights. "Privilege comes with responsibility," he had told Sterling. "Members who can't recognize the difference between compassion and liability don't belong in civilized society." 6 months later, Maya was thriving in her nursing program at Yale University. Her clinical rotations had confirmed her passion for endocrinology, and she was already being recruited by several hospitals for post-graduation positions. Diego's health had stabilized dramatically with access to advanced monitoring technology, and his academic performance had improved along with his glucose control. Elena had discovered a fulfilling new career, helping newly diagnosed diabetes patients navigate the complex world of insurance coverage, medication management, and lifestyle adjustments. Her personal experience as a parent, combined with her professional healthcare background, made her incredibly effective at supporting other families facing similar challenges. Camden had also transformed following his near-death experience. He'd become serious about managing his diabetes, working closely with his endocrinologist to develop sustainable habits and monitoring routines. More importantly, he'd gained a new perspective on privilege and responsibility, volunteering with diabetes support groups and funding educational programs for low-income families. The incident at Sterling Heights had revealed the stark contrast between two different kinds of knowledge, the kind that comes from textbooks and medical degrees, and the kind that comes from lived experience and genuine caring. Maya's intervention had saved Camden's life, but the ripple effects had transformed multiple lives and challenged long-held assumptions about worth, wisdom, and the true meaning of helping others. Harrison Blackwood had learned that sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources, and that true medical expertise isn't always measured by degrees or titles. Maya Rodriguez had learned that knowledge combined with courage could open doors she'd never imagined possible. And Camden Blackwood had learned that sometimes the person who saves your life is someone you might have walked past without a second glance, but whose compassion and expertise were exactly what you needed when nothing else mattered. 1 year after the incident, Maya was invited to speak at the American Diabetes Association's annual conference. Standing before an audience of endocrinologists, researchers, and healthcare professionals, she shared her perspective on diabetes management from the viewpoint of a caregiver family. "Medical knowledge isn't just about degrees and certifications," Maya told the packed auditorium. "Sometimes it's about a 15-year-old girl learning to calculate insulin-to-carb ratios at 2 in the morning because her brother's life depends on it. It's about recognizing the subtle changes in breathing patterns that indicate ketoacidosis, or knowing that fruity breath smell means immediate intervention is needed." Her presentation challenged the medical establishment to consider how lived experience complemented formal training. Maya's research project, conducted during her junior year at Yale, had documented how families affected by chronic conditions often developed expertise that rivaled professional healthcare providers in specific areas. Camden attended Maya's presentation, sitting in the back row with his father. His own transformation had been remarkable. He'd lost 30 pounds, achieved consistent blood sugar control, and had become an advocate for diabetes awareness among young adults. He'd also established the Rodriguez Foundation, funded by the Blackwood family fortune, which provided diabetes supplies and education to low-income families across Connecticut. Watching Maya speak to those doctors made me realize how much I'd wasted my privileged position, Camden reflected later. I had access to the best medical care money could buy, but I never appreciated it until a girl from Riverside showed me what real medical knowledge looked like. The foundation had already helped over 200 families, providing continuous glucose monitors, insulin pumps, and educational support to children and teenagers who otherwise couldn't afford advanced diabetes management tools. Diego Rodriguez had become the foundation's youth spokesperson, sharing his story at schools and community centers throughout the state. Elena Rodriguez had also found her calling in ways she'd never expected. Her role at Meridian Therapeutics had evolved beyond patient coordination. She now headed the company's community outreach division, designing programs that bridge the gap between pharmaceutical innovation and real-world patient needs. Her insights into the daily challenges faced by families managing chronic conditions had influenced product development decisions and marketing strategies throughout the company. Elena understands our customers in ways that our market research could never capture, Harrison often told his executive team. She knows what it's like to choose between paying rent and buying insulin. She understands the anxiety of checking blood sugar levels in the middle of the night. That perspective is invaluable. Under Elena's guidance, Meridian Therapeutics had launched several groundbreaking initiatives. The company's sliding scale pricing program ensured that no family paid more than 10% of their household income for essential diabetes medications. Their educational app, developed with input from families like the Rodriguez's, had been downloaded over 500,000 times and was being used by healthcare providers nationwide. Hoggood. Diego's academic achievements had continued to flourish with his improved diabetes management. Now 18 and preparing for college, he'd been accepted to MIT's computer science program with a full scholarship. His senior project had involved developing an artificial intelligence system that could predict diabetic episodes based on pattern recognition in glucose monitoring data. Having stable blood sugar levels changed everything for me academically, Diego explained to a group of younger students with diabetes. When your glucose is swinging between 50 and 300 throughout the day, it's impossible to concentrate on calculus or chemistry. But once I got access to better monitoring and treatment, my grades went from B's and C's to straight A's. The ripple effects of that August afternoon had extended far beyond the individuals directly involved. Sterling Heights Country Club had undergone a complete cultural transformation under new management. Richard Sterling had been quietly dismissed, replaced by Maria Santos, a former hospital administrator who implemented comprehensive emergency response protocols and diversity training for all staff members. The club's new policies required all employees to receive basic first aid and CPR certification, with specialized training in recognizing medical emergencies. More significantly, the club had established a scholarship program for children of staff members, helping break down the barriers between workers and members that had prevented Maya from being taken seriously during Camden's crisis. Mrs. Whitmore and several other members had resigned their memberships in protest of the club's progressive policies, but their departures had made room for a more diverse and socially conscious membership base. The club's new culture emphasized community service and social responsibility alongside recreational activities. Harrison Blackwood's own evolution had been perhaps the most dramatic of all. The near loss of his son had forced him to confront the disconnect between his company's mission and his personal values. He'd begun visiting diabetes support groups, meeting with patient families, and spending time in community clinics to understand the real-world impact of pharmaceutical pricing and accessibility. I realized I'd been living in an ivory tower, Harrison admitted during a candid interview with Healthcare Business magazine. I was making decisions about medications that affected millions of lives, but I'd never actually met someone who had to choose between insulin and groceries. Maya Rodriguez didn't just save my son's life, she saved my company's soul. Meridian Therapeutics had become a leader in pharmaceutical industry reform, pushing for transparent pricing, expanded patient assistance programs, and increased investment in community health initiatives. The company's stock price had initially suffered from reduced profit margins, but long-term investor confidence had grown as the company's reputation for ethical practices attracted top talent and customer loyalty. The academic world had also taken her thesis advisor, Dr. Patricia Hoffman, had been initially skeptical of Maya's arguments, but became a convert after reviewing the data. Maya's work challenges some fundamental assumptions about medical expertise and authority, Dr. Hoffman noted. She's shown that we need to create better systems for recognizing and utilizing the knowledge that exists outside traditional medical hierarchies. The research had practical implications as well. Several hospitals had begun implementing, quote, family expertise protocols, where long-term caregivers were formally consulted about treatment decisions and included in medical team meetings. Early results showed improved patient outcomes and higher satisfaction rates among both families and healthcare providers. Camden's own journey had included advocacy work that extended beyond diabetes awareness. He'd become involved in healthcare policy reform, testifying before state legislators about the need for improved emergency response training and anti-discrimination protections for Good Samaritan interventions. Maya Rodriguez should have been celebrated as a hero from the moment she acted, Camden told a legislative committee considering Good Samaritan law reforms. Instead, she was punished for having the knowledge and courage that adults with far more resources lacked. We need legal protections for people who step forward to help during medical emergencies, regardless of their formal credentials or social status. The legislation that resulted from Camden's advocacy, known as the Rodriguez Act, provided legal protections for individuals who provided emergency medical assistance based on legitimate training or experience, even if they weren't licensed healthcare professionals. The law had been adopted by 12 states and was being considered by federal legislators. Maya's younger cousin, Isabella, had been inspired by her example to pursue a career in emergency medicine. Now a sophomore in high school, Isabella volunteered with a local EMT service and had already been accepted to several pre-med programs with early admission. The Rodriguez family's influence on healthcare careers was expanding to the next generation. Maya showed me that you don't have to wait until you're a doctor to make a difference in healthcare, Isabella explained. Knowledge and compassion are more important than titles or degrees. If you understand how to help someone, you have a responsibility to act. The security cameras at Sterling Heights had indeed captured everything that happened that scorching Tuesday afternoon, but the footage had become something more than a record of events. It had become a symbol of the moment when courage trumped convention, when knowledge overcame prejudice, and when a single act of compassion created ripples that transformed lives, institutions, and entire communities in ways that none of them could have ever imagined. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.